This video is not sponsored. Well, you guys have probably all heard about the Apple price increases on a number of their products. It pretty much covers the whole freaking gamut of the products that they offer, including computers. I think for me, maybe the most interesting of that is the Apple MacBook Neo. This was a new product that was introduced that was a budget MacBook. Its original retail price was $599 for the 256 gigabytes of memory without Touch ID. Now, yes, those are things that you may want in your computer, but this was a bare bones, stripped down, budget-friendly computer. Well, after the price increases, Apple has made this computer $100 more. That means that this computer, which was originally $599, is now $699, a $700 computer. Something that I think is also interesting, for the 256 gigabytes of storage without Touch ID, that computer for students and education prices was $499. That's a $500 laptop computer that is a MacBook. That is not something that they were able to originally do. Typically, Apple computers cost more than that, so this was a budget computer. I bring up the MacBook Neo mostly just because it highlights the fact that these Apple price hikes have changed the landscape of Apple products. Now, a question that I think we could ask ourselves is this one. What would Steve Jobs think of Apple's current state of pricing and their most recent price increase? We're going to get into that and more in this video. To get a better idea of whether or not Steve Jobs would approve of the recent price hikes, let's go into the mind of Steve Jobs. At his 2005 Stanford University commencement address, Steve said this: "You cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward. So let's connect the dots by looking backward." To do this, we are going to go all the way back to Steve's very early life. In fact, let's go back to the womb. Steve Jobs was originally born under parents that are different from the parents who raised him. Steve Jobs was adopted. Steve Jobs was born in San Francisco to Joanne Carroll and Abdul Fattah John Dali. Abdul Fattah, or John Dali, was Syrian. He was born to a wealthy Syrian family. To better get into the mind of Steve Jobs and understand his cultural history, we are actually going to do a little bit of a mukbang on the channel, and we're going to order Syrian food to be delivered here while we talk about Steve Jobs and the recent price hikes from Apple. So I'm going to use my iPhone Pro to order on GrubHub. I'm going to be getting the falafel. Now that the food is on the way, we can dive in. Steve Jobs was a true innovator in terms of technology and design and the way that it incorporates into our life. If you just look at his computers.
From GrubHub. Your order is on the way.
It appears that there's a gentleman of some sort driving a rental truck. It appears as though he's entering the truck or something like that. Wait a minute, he's not supposed to be opening the food? Personally, I do not want my food handled that way. Well, now it looks like he's putting it back inside of its foil wrap.
Well, you guys, the food has arrived. So while we get into it, talk about Steve Jobs and the recent price hikes at Apple, we will be trying this food. This looks delicious. Now we can try this. Is the falafel wrap. That is very good falafel wrap. This is a bit messy, but this is good. I understand why Steve Jobs would have liked this. Let's get into a little bit of Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs did end up going to college, but the reason this was a big deal is because neither of his two adoptive parents had degrees themselves. Now, when Steve was in college, he thought a lot about the fact that his parents were paying all of this money to send him there. He decided that it was too much money that his parents were paying, so he dropped out without even telling them. He still lived at the college campus, he stayed on friends' couches, and he would attend the classes by listening to what the teachers said, even though he wasn't a student. He would go to the lectures. In fact, he would even come up with clever ways to sell Coca-Cola bottles so that he could get money to eat. Steve was very frugal at this time in his life. I guess you could say that he valued money in a different way than many of his peers. Well, that would be one reason that he maybe wouldn't like the price hikes that Apple has recently done. These price hikes have increased the Apple MacBook Neo, which is very popular for college students, would be $499 at the time of original release, but now it's $599. Steve likely would have had to get a computer like that if he were a student today, and that would have been more money for him. So I think Steve would not have liked that. After the college time was over, Steve Jobs actually worked with one of his co-founders of Apple, Steve Wozniak. They worked out of a garage, which is another very frugal thing that likely they would have thought that they're saving money and they're doing this because of the way that they value money. But what if I told you that Steve Jobs actually did talk about releasing a $500 laptop? Well, there is a quote where he did talk about it. Steve actually went on a record as saying this: "There are some customers which we choose not to serve. We do not know how to make a $500 computer that's not a piece of junk, and our DNA will not let us ship that." So that's him basically saying that ultimately he would not make a $500 computer if he did not think that they could. Now, what does this have to do with the recent price hikes? Well, they had a $500 computer. Granted, it was only 4 months, a short period of time, but they increased the prices. the reason they increased the prices is because of chips and storage, which has recently completely surged due to AI. And this caused their prices to go up for them, so they make the prices go up for the customer. Ultimately, that means that they cannot make that MacBook that they have their standards for at that price point. So they increased the price. Steve has officially gone on record as saying that he would not support a $500 laptop if it wasn't part of their DNA. And it isn't. So they don't have that product anymore. They increased the price to more than that. And that is something that I think Steve Jobs would have been okay with. I think it's as simple as that ultimately, that Steve Jobs did talk about that, and he did say that he wouldn't have a laptop that cheap if it couldn't be good enough, and it clearly couldn't. So ultimately, I think the question is answered. Steve Jobs would approve of the recent price hikes. Granted, we need to assume that they are for the reasons of keeping quality high, but Apple typically has very high standards for design and quality, so we have no reason to believe that it isn't for that purpose. In terms of the food that I ate, the Syrian food, it was very delicious. It was my first time having Syrian food, and I definitely recommend it to anybody interested in eating some of the food that Steve Jobs' ancestors would have eaten.
About a year ago, I had a biopsy where they stuck an endoscope down my throat, through my stomach and into my intestines. You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards.
Lower the door using the pull string.
Latch the door by releasing the handle
from the keeper and rotating the handle until it engages the locking hasp. If the latch handle will not rotate fully, check that the ramp is fully stowed and not interfering. Once latched, be sure to secure your items by locking the hasp with a